Welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast, where we empower you to build a better ranch and transform your operations into a thriving business. I'm your host, John Haskell. Let's get started. All right, Joe Gardiner, welcome to the Ranchonomics Podcast. Really glad to have you here. Joe is a farmer up in Canada, and we are interested in learning more about his ways. So, Joe, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me on again, John. It's an honor once again to be on this podcast that's had such an influence on my farm and my life. So my name's Joe Gardiner. I run a company called Covers & Co. So I came out of university in 2011. At that point, I'd been farming for 3 years already. We were a very conventional grain cattle operation. So we were growing, canola, wheat, all the conventional things we grow here in Canada. We had a couple hundred head of Black Angus livestock. The grain land was the grain land, the hay land was the hay land, and the cattle land was the pasture land, and they never really intersected at all. Fundamentally, the shift that we made on our farm in 2018, we were working around the edges of soil health, doing some of the simple kind of first adaptation practices with some success, but we really hadn't implemented much. But I remember I was inside my last bin of canola, shoveling it out in 2018, having the realization that I'm not even close to the end of my operating line, and something is going to have to fundamentally change here. So in 2018, I termed out our operating debt, and I said to Dad, I'm like, either we change something here. I'm like, we're going broke slowly. It's not going to be this year because we got lots of equity, but we have to fundamentally change something on the farm, or this is
The
just
writing was on the wall, huh?
Precisely.
Yeah.
We did, I think, some good strategies. I wouldn't do them all the exact same as I did when I did them, but hindsight truly is 2020. So we started we incorporated the soil health principles as aggressively as we could. We really tried to have a war on costs. So our equipment was out of hand. I mean, we were borrowing money on things we absolutely shouldn't have. And I came to the realization that if we were going to implement a kind of whole farm system, the cows were going to have to play a much more important role in our operation for stacking enterprises and using land more efficiently. So we adapted, and I wish I knew then what I knew now. We aggressively adapted, if you guys are familiar with the Gabe Brown model of treating your heifers like your cows and building a better cow herd over time. I mean, that really did work. Like, our cow size decreased. We were just getting better breed backs. We were pushing the heifers pretty hard. But what also was happening over that first little while was we were sending a lot of cows to the auction barn via cull cows. A lot of open first calf heifers were heading to the auction barn. Now, it was all for a good reason, that we were trying to improve what in theory was our most profitable enterprise on our farm. But now I realize we were getting absolutely hosed on cow depreciation. And on paper, it looked really good, but I was missing a very fundamental cost, which was cow depreciation and herd replacement cost, which I haven't gone back and done the math. Cows were worth half what they are now, but I will guarantee you it was about all of our profit that.
Yeah, don't go back and do the math. You don't want to know, I promise. I think it took Wally 5 or 7 years to talk me into the real understanding of the cow depreciation model that he talks about. It's exactly the same in that period. If you look at if I had adopted it right when he started talking about it, as opposed to 5 or 7 years later, what would that have been worth? And of course, that included the 13, 14, 15, 16 years, right? I think it was around 2011, 2010 when he started. And so that took me, to the next trough in the cattle cycle, which is when the light bulb came on. It's like, man, what would it have been worth to know that through the prior peak? Wally continues to be patient with me, and I'm thankful for that every day. He never gave up.
I've never met the man, but am I ever thankful for Wally Olson? Thankful to this podcast for introducing me to who Wally Olson is, because boy, have we. I mean, I've made some just fundamental changes in my thought process, which has translated to fundamental changes and unbelievable increased profitability and resiliency in our farming operation.
That's so cool to hear. And I know Wally listens, so I know he will hear that also. But I'm going to tell you, as doing this podcast, that's literally the most gratifying thing that can happen, right? We do this to try to help people benefit from the things we've benefited from. And It's just some days you hope people are listening, right?
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job, and I speak for myself only, John, but yeah, what an influence this podcast has been. And I guess back to my story and my timeline, of which this very podcast is an important part of. In 2024, we were getting on a better path from the farm standpoint, but I was doing my budgets, and we were still grain farming about 1,200 acres at the time. And this is spring 2024, and I had put off our crop plan as long as I could because they looked terrible. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, best case scenario with this, we're breaking even, but we're going to take about a $400,000 gamble here, and hopefully we break even at the end. It just didn't seem like a very good idea. At that time, I had heard of Wally Olson. Unfortunately, this podcast didn't exist at that time, but I forget if it was through Dave Pratt or I go down a lot of YouTube rabbit holes. But I remember one line, and I don't even think it was a Wally line. I think it was a Bud Williams line. But he said, you can buy an expensive cow just as long as you sell an expensive cow.
That's
And
actually a Jim Garish line.
Jim Garish, yes, right.
Yeah, which is funny, but yeah, good. But Wally quotes Jim with that very regularly. Yeah, awesome.
Well,
Good.
and I didn't know anything about sell by. What I knew was the grain wasn't going to be that profitable, and how quickly can we pivot? Cows were starting to climb. And at the time, for your listeners, I know it's mostly in the States, so I'm going to probably reference some dollars. I will be talking Canadian dollars, but the exchange rate today, for every $1, that equals 72 cents American. So for every American dollar, it's about $1.40 Canadian. So at the time when I was doing this was about mid-April, there was a friend of mine was selling a herd of young Black Angus cows that would have fit perfectly in our herd. He had the exact same system, but at the time, and this is going to sound cheap, he wanted $3,600
Oh my goodness.
for cows that were going to calve in like 3 weeks. So it's a little like $2,800 American or something like that.
Right. Bred cows right now in your part of the world that are near calving are selling for like $5,000, $6,000, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you betcha.
Okay, good. Just to give some, we're recording this in January of 26. So yeah.
Yeah. So at the time, I make a habit of my neighbors thinking I'm crazy, but we went out and bought in April of 2024, we bought 200 bred cows. And I would like to say it was more than just that line that Wally Olson said, but there wasn't a whole lot more thought process that went into it. I just did not even a 1 year budget, like an 8-month budget that, okay, if I can buy these cows, and in Canada, we have something called livestock price insurance, which is essentially just a hedge. So we're just setting our floor. So I knew at worst, I was going to sell a calf for like $2,600. I'm going to invest $3,600 in this cow. It's going to take me $800 to get her through to rebred to a point where I can sell her again. And just that hedge gave us the confidence to be like, yeah, it's a big number, but I mean, the cattle industry in 2024, we were just dealing in some big numbers. So it was at that point where we had made a $750,000 investment in these cows, and I was taking this Wally guy's word for it. I should probably learn some more about what this sell by actually is, because I know it's deeper than, well, I just buy expensive cows and sell expensive
buy
cows.
high and sell high, right? Yeah, there's got to be more to it.
Exactly. And honestly, John, you started your podcast, I think it was in June 2024.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I got onto it. I started listening. I think you had 6 episodes out when I started listening, and I sit around and wait for new episodes to come out now.
And we talked to Wally and Marlene, and we talked a lot of sell by in those first dozen episodes.
And thank God you did.
Yeah. That's awesome.
All those early episodes, like you say, with Wally, Marlene.
Aaron Helmick, we talked to in there, talking about sheep.
His daughter's Lacey. Yes, he was great too.
Kim Barker.
Kim was great too. You guys were speaking a language that I understood, but I had never heard before. And everything you said, it maybe didn't make sense to me off the start, but you dive into it. You, like Wally says, trust the math, know your numbers and trust the math. I was just doing the numbers and realizing, geez, these guys aren't crazy at all. There's a really, really good opportunity here. So fast forward into 2025, we actually, kind of based on the sell-by principles, that herd came in the fall, and still, I didn't think cow prices were where they needed to be for what you were getting for calf prices. So I don't know if this is a sell-by principle or ranching for profit, who takes credit for this, but every animal in our herd, I try and look at and say, what is the market value on that animal? And would I pay that? And if the answer is no, then
So that's 100% from Bud Williams. That's a sell buy thing. I think Ranching for Profit talks about it too, but Bud is the first person I heard talk about that. And his statement along that line was, if you wouldn't buy it, then you should probably sell it. Right. So whether, and owning it is just basically a choice to buy it that day. Right. If I owned it yesterday and now I'm looking at today and saying, is this animal a good buy or not? If I keep it, I have effectively bought it. So,
well, I've had several conversations because there's been quite a few cows show up at my place, and I live right next to the highway, of course. So I got a lot of neighbors saying, what the hell are you doing? Like, what if the market drops? And I say to them, well, how many $5,500 cows are you buying this fall? And they're like, well, 0. That's crazy. And I say, no, you are absolutely wrong. I can look in your pasture and see $150,500 animals right there. And if you didn't sell them, you bought them. So that little trick and that change in mindset, literally, I tell people it's like I was walking around my farm with vision problems and somebody gave me a pair of glasses, because it started to flow through everything in the farm. And I know that Dallas, it was obviously a Bud principle, but I was listening to Dallas Mount on a podcast and he talked about it. I remember exactly where I was. I was out moving cows on the pasture, and Dallas was talking about make a list of all your equipment and the market value of that. It might even have been on this podcast now that I think about it.
It might have been, yeah.
But take the market value and ask yourself the question, would I pay that if I could get that today? And John, I went through my equipment and basically all of it is gone now.
No kidding. Oh, interesting. Boy, you're a harsh taskmaster. I like it.
Yeah, well, I told you before, I generally don't dip my toes in when I like something. I will jump in. So yeah, it is.
I want to go back real quickly though, because you mentioned something else. I'm going to make sure and clarify for our listeners. You talked about the value of the calf the cow is going to produce in the year, plus the cost to runner, et cetera. So that you are talking about the intrinsic value calculation, right? Take the purchase price of the cow, the cost it's going to take to runner. So in your case, it's $800 to $1,000 a year, I'm assuming, in Canada.
I hear your guys' numbers of what you run cows for, and it makes me want to puke.
Some of that is latitude, some of that is currency, right?
Yes, correct. Even with the currency, though, we're about $1,500.
Yeah. Okay. So take it at 1,500, but then you subtract or you would add back, if you will, the sale proceeds you would get from the calf plus the cull price of the cow, and that gives you the intrinsic value of the cow. And at that time, you were looking around and saying, okay, I can buy this cow, I can feed her, I can sell the calf, and I could sell the cow at the end and come out significantly positive, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And there was a good time right in that 24 period where that was absolutely true in a huge portion of the market.
So at the time, John, I didn't understand that was a sell-by principle. I just knew that was a principle, or that was math that made sense to me.
Yeah.
That we're reducing risk. So anyway, we took those cows. We had 200 cows. We bought 200. We had about 400 cows. So what we did was we ran through those cows, and anything we did the test, that cow's worth $4,000. Would I pay that for? Absolutely not. So what we ended up at the end with was a completely uniform 1,200 to 1,250 pound cow herd. We had about 250 cows. We ended up selling a few as breds, but what we did with about, I think it was 68 pair or 65 pair, basically they were our cull cows. If you rewind to our farm in 2021, we would have ran those cows through and got salvage value for them. So at the time, that was maybe $2,500. We were running them through in March. So all we did was we kept those cows. We put them on a separate pasture. We don't do anything with our animals at calving. We honestly purposely just try and stay the hell out of the way. So those 65 animals, they were bad udders, bad feed, too big, wrong color, you name it. They were over there. We calved them out. We ended up selling those pairs for $5,850 when the salvage value on them was $2,500.
So you doubled your money by running them an extra 6 months kind of thing.
Correct.
Yeah. Nice work.
And well, having early success for something like this, I think is important. And that's why I would say for anybody that's getting into it, don't start at the scale I started with. I'm just incredibly impatient. But those early wins, boy, nothing teaches a lesson. I mean, Some failure helps too, but boy, you have some really success with something like that and you start to pay attention. Man, I wonder if there's other opportunities like this just kicking around the farm. There were a lot of years, like on that one trade, of which I would call our cull cows, we cleared over $100,000 of over salvage value. John, I was good with numbers for the decade prior. There were years where we're trying to scratch out $100 and $150 a cow.
Yeah, yeah, right. Total game changer when it's six figures, right?
Unbelievable the difference. So, yeah, we've just, I won't tell you about every single trade that we've made, but it's been us just having, and I say us, on our farm, it's my wife, my brother, and his partner that we farm together. It's called Riot Ranch, have a lot of the say as far as the marketing side of things. But Ranching for Profit talks about the $1,000 per hour jobs. No joke. I'm sure learning about sell by or just understanding the marketing processes of livestock, I am absolutely 100% confident it has paid us back $1,000 an hour for every hour I've invested.
Yeah, and the cool thing is you have more time to invest in the learning, but you've got your entire career in front of you to reap the benefits, right? So
100%. Yeah.
it's pretty cool how that works. Yeah, that's awesome. Here's the truth. Every ranch is a business, and your numbers should work as hard as you do. At RanchRite, we help ranchers get control of their finances with systems designed specifically for ag operations. From bookkeeping and reports to coaching and strategy, it's all customizable to what you and your operation need. Stop guessing and start managing with power. Learn more at ranchritellc.com. So the other thing that I want to just point out here as we go along, so you're not talking about being in the sale barn every day. You're not talking about buying and selling feeder calves. You're not working with a feedlot, anything like this. I want to repeat what I've said multiple times. People that we work with that implement the ranching for profit principles and get their operation reasonably sound and then add sell by marketing are significantly more profitable than any other type of customer that we work with. And within the sell by marketing framework, those who deal primarily in breeding stock generally have the highest rates of return and frankly just generate the most money.
I am new at this and the backgrounding side intrigues me, but I know you and Wally, you guys are probably more background or calf heavy than you are cow heavy, but
we're recovering stocker operators, yes.
Yeah. But I look around at, I mean, now I watch cattle sales for fun. I check markets at nighttime. I just love playing with different scenarios within our spreadsheets. But appreciation opportunities in a cow herd, there are just some amazing opportunities. And I feel bad for the people that look at the cattle industry now and think, well, how could I ever possibly afford to expand or get in? Because now is just an unbelievable opportunity. Yes, the numbers are bigger, but the margins stay, relatively constant, and your return is going to be bigger.
Yeah, and there are two quick things I want to make on top of this. The first one is you're not talking about just riding the appreciation up, right? You're talking about actually generating cash while you're doing it. So you're growing your equity with retained earnings instead of appreciation, which is a very important thing. The other thing here, and I just lost my train of thought.
Well, John, let me throw it back to you because I've been wondering this question myself. I think I got a pretty good idea. Again, just following Wally and your guys' teaching. In a down market, that's where having a good buy and having good gross margin there, that when the market starts to turn against you, as long as it's not going a greater drop than what your gross margin is, you're still going to have an opportunity then to get out of that trade and get back into a better buy as the market decreases.
So again, as that market is going down, what you're really focused on is picking up the cash difference between the sell and the buy, right? So yes, my sell is cheaper than maybe what I had hoped, but the buyback is also cheaper. We actually just this fall market thing that we had when Trump started talking about importing a bunch of beef and all, when we had a bit of a market crash in the U.S., the board went from like 380 down to 320 and a couple of, I want to say it was a week or two. And then it's since come back to like 350. We have a great little microcosm right there of what can happen when the market drops and when it comes back up. And I'm going to tell you that Wally talks all the time about don't freeze up, keep trading. And he is exactly right, because and Bud used to talk about this too, as long as you keep trading while the market is going down, you are still generating significant cash flow. I had always expected that, well, okay, and if we're looking at a lot of financials in a down market, we should see a loss of equity. And yes, you can see that. That is possible. And again, a loss of equity isn't, you don't eat equity, right? So as long as we're within reasonable parameters, like that shouldn't be that big a deal. But what we are often seeing is not a loss of equity. The equity actually holds. And in part because the cash flow generated allows you to hold the equity. And then as soon as the market turns back around, and again, we have a 3-month window where we just did this, equity takes off again. The more volatility there is in the market from a sell-buy perspective, the better, right? A high, stable market is not the best thing for a sell-buy trader, right? You want it to go up, you want it to go down, you just want it doing stuff. Because every time it does stuff, up or down, you have an opportunity to capitalize on.
Do you find the opportunity on the buys get better in a down market just because there's less people that are trying to play?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Greed and fear is what markets run on, right? And as soon as everybody's in fear mode, they make bad decisions. And I hate to sound greedy and say, well, we're going to capitalize on people's bad decisions, but that is what they do. And so people start either holding things longer than they should or just sort of panic selling, that sort of thing. And those are the places where if you've got a good plan and you understand how the numbers work, you can walk through that thing with no panic and you will make good decisions right there and see wonderful opportunities. In that little market dip that we saw in, I think it was October, was it like the 3rd or 4th week of October? We actually wound up in a situation where our value of gain at that time on some cutter bulls that we were trading was over $21 a pound. Okay, now we have a situation there where it's kind of expensive to feed them. Like it costs us $3 a day to feed those or $5 a day to feed those. So it's like, $2 or $3 a pound to get those suckers through. If my value of gain is $21 a pound, who cares, right? So those are the things that show up, but they don't show up when the market's super stable. I mean, they do, but not as much, right? When you have real volatility, then suddenly there are great opportunities to buy.
Yeah. John, I didn't mean to flip this, me, the interviewer, asking you questions, but I am a loyal listener, and I do have some questions just from some of the things that we're doing in our farm. Where's hedging play a role, or does it at all for you guys?
For me, it really doesn't at this point. I've played some different hedging strategies to try to find what would really work well. There's definitely a place for it for some people. My experience with hedging right now, and I'm a little jaded after some recent experience here a couple of years ago when the market was running up, is that hedging is me really trying to break even, right? I am buying insurance to make sure I break even, and I'm really not interested in breaking even. So we try to operate in such a way that if the whole thing collapses tomorrow, it's not going to affect our ability to eat. But we're just not doing much of it. The purpose of the hedging is insurance. And the insurance in my mind now comes from what we know about sell-buy.
Yeah.
Sell-buy itself provides better insurance and better cash flow than any of the purchased insurance, if that makes sense.
What would you say to somebody starting out who's a little bit nervous about, am I doing the right thing? Do I actually understand these principles? Do I recognize sell triggers and buy triggers?
Yep. That's a great question. And I would plug myself in, as you have done, plug yourself into every resource you can, right? We live in a world and in an age where things are so available to us. Wally Olson and I both answer the phone when people call. Doug Ferguson answers the phone when people call. Talk to some experts and get help. Take the classes, watch the YouTube videos, right? Listen to the podcast, do all that stuff. There is nothing that takes away that first leap. You got to make it. And you're going to screw some things up right off the bat. Okay, do it. As you said, do it at a scale you can stand. If it doesn't work out, well, but at some point you just have to get in and start doing it. And I don't know any way to make that first step more comfortable. And as soon as you do it, you're going to realize all the things you don't know. And that's when the real education starts.
You're definitely the wrong person for me to ask this question to, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway.
Okay.
Bud Williams came up with these concepts 40, 50 years ago.
I don't know how long ago, but I know I first learned them from Bud 25 years ago.
I guess where I'm going, I think you know where I'm going with this is why hasn't this, why, why do I just hear the same names when it comes to sell by? Why hasn't that, why aren't there massive courses and they're teaching this, these fundamentals in, I mean, they do a pretty good job at ranching for profit. I don't want to give them a hard time, and universities, maybe that's the wrong, but why isn't it a greater conversation in the cattle industry world in Western Canada? There was nobody that talked to more producers than I the last 6 years, and I stumbled across it by accident, you know? Like, I don't know why it's not more of the mainstream.
Yeah, it's a great question. I can't answer that. Again, I think we have some wonderful resources out there, but we think about the number of people who I'm amazed I still talk to people that have never heard of ranching for profit. There are people in the world that haven't heard of Gabe Brown. They don't like. I don't know. That's a good question. I do think we have a number of people that are teaching sell by, and different personalities match different people. There are different skill levels amongst the teachers, just like with stockmanship or any of those things. But again, we live in an age where all of this is very accessible, and most of us don't access it. I can't tell you why. All right, so let me ask. Let's wrap this up. We're at 25-ish minutes here. Where do you see yourself going forward? How are we proceeding with this? I mean, you are in. So you're kind of a farmer, but
Kinda.
now you're a livestock guy too. The farm deal is a mess. It's a little better, I think, in Canada than it is in the U.S. But yeah, grain commodity prices are horrendous. Are you full pivot to livestock? Are you still maintaining a row crop business? Tell me what you're doing there.
You've heard the phrase burn the boats and know
Yeah.
what that means?
Hell yeah.
I have got rid of our grain equipment.
Okay, no more planting, no more harvesting.
So we have held on to our drill, which I
Is it
co-own
a cover
with
crop deal?
Yeah, exactly. So the goal on our farm, I mean, this was a goal of mine starting 10 years ago when I got into plant diversity and soil health, was it's not lip service. I'm going to leave the land better for the next generation. So it's honest, and there are things you can do. There are really good grain producers out there that are, reducing inputs. They're great rotations. They're focusing on carbon and nitrogen. They're intercropping. But I'm like, if you want to get to Japan, there's two ways you can do it. You can hop on a boat and it's going to take you a really long time, or you can hop on an airplane and be there in 12 hours from here. I mean, in the soil health world and improving the land, I think that is the difference between having cows and being able to recycle those nutrients. I mean, we're buying quite a bit of hay now and bale grazing everything on the land. I mean, that's like rocket fuel for, healing the water cycle, the nutrient cycle. I mean, just getting plants going. When my parents have been bale grazing for 25 years, you can still see the rings and the spots where they did that in the mid 90s. So our focus is, I really did enjoy the grain farming and the kind of getting to be the artist with the intercrops and trying to maximize profitability on each acre. But I mean, now with sell by, there's nothing in the grain world. And granted, cattle prices are very good and we've got a lot of equity invested in cows. But there is nothing that is going to match dollars per acre in my pocket like the livestock. And it just so happens to also be able to put our soil health farm improvement goals in, like, add rocket fuel to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's fantastic, right? When a profitable enterprise can make your land better.
Yeah.
So much of the world thinks that to make the land better, you have to not be profitable. And
you got to mine it.
Yeah. I pick on our federal land management agencies, especially in the U.S., right? Who they don't have a mortgage to pay, and yet they can't make a living on their own land, right? That's the fundamental reflection of a paradigm that is deeply flawed. So,
yeah.
Interesting.
And to be honest, John, like, I do a lot of this and I do a lot of talking to producers. My generation might be the last one that's even going to be able to afford farmland. Like, somebody that's trying to get into conventional farming game that's younger than me, I mean, it's going to be a tough slug. We need alternate farming practices that show profitability, that gives people excitement and hope to get involved in agriculture. The average age of a farmer in Canada is like 69 years old. The amount of land that's going to turn over...
Which is like 45 in the U.S., right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess, like, I really like talking to producers, and man, I have been blessed that is what I get to wake up and do every single day. Part of my goal is to, I'm cut from a little bit different of a cloth than some that are in this world, and people look at me kind of like an outcast sometimes, which is fine. But if we get a few of us together and have a blueprint and can show younger people that you can be a first generation farm and this is a profitable opportunity. You can be on a struggling farm and change, and there's hope out there. But too much of the conversation in agriculture is it's impossible to get in. You're going to be cash poor and you're going to die rich. And we're going to have all sorts of succession problems with family. Oh, and by the way, you got to work sun up to sundown your entire existence. I just don't think that's a good sales pitch for agriculture going forward. And I mean, I'm just a small cog in the wheel here, but it's something I'm super passionate about, is finding success and sharing it as best I can, what has worked. And to be honest, what hasn't worked,
Oh, yeah. No, you got to include both parts. So that's really cool. You've heard me say before, we talk all the time with customers who are buying land with proceeds from agriculture-only operations. There are no oil wells involved. There's no daddy's money from the tech industry or something like that. We certainly do see people that buy, make money in another industry and buy land, but I'm a lot less interested in those than I am in the ones that are doing a great job at agriculture and buying agricultural land with the proceeds. So I will say this, so I don't care how good you are at it. It is a slog. There are some hard parts. There's going to be some hard work involved. So we all like to talk about right now in the U.S. I think it's the same in Canada. Like, oh, it was better in the 50s and 60s when, no, that's not true. There was a lot of forgetting that happens in the intervening decades. So.
Or the 80s with 30% interest rates.
Oh, can you imagine?
No.
I mean, yeah,
No.
yeah. Terrible. So, okay, great. Where do people find you? Where you've got a website, you got a podcast. Tell us about that stuff.
Yeah, so you can reach out to me. You can find my information on coversandco.ca. So throughout the winter, we do webinars with different producers that we pick one specific topic, bring on 3 farm experts, just people that have tried it, a specific practice. We do weekly podcasts called the Connor and Joe Show, where Connor and I and a guest tackle a hot button ag topic. You can reach out to me on the website or email me. Yeah, if you got any questions. I have finite or very specific interests, but the things I'm interested in, I get really interested in.
And you're a big fan of The Office, I'm gathering from the picture.
I am an unhealthy big fan of The Office, yes.
Fantastic. You watch the British version or the American version?
Both, but I'm a bigger fan of the American one.
Oh, that's funny. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, thank you very much. I appreciate you being willing to talk with us today, and I really appreciate your time. So thank you and the kind words. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's an honor to have you.
The honor's all mine, John. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Thank you for tuning into the Ranchnomics podcast. We hope this episode helped you win today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend.